Save money, go to geico.com, geico.com. All right. In 15 minutes, where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong, I was plenty of both for this Super Bowl. We had a lot of predictions. It's one of my favorite segments we do every week. I whiffed on a lot, and we nailed some things. All right, Eric Mangini is back. He's got 3 rings with New England, also been very critical of New England. We thought he was a perfect guest today. Okay, there's a couple of things. I didn't notice this, and you know this because you coach DBs. So this is one of these plays that I really lean to you, the Hail Mary. Now, it all worked out for Philadelphia, but there's 2 things that jumped out to you. What were they?
Well, there's actually a few things that jumped out to me. And this is one of those situations where Philly starts, they're lining the sideline. They're going to try to make sure New England doesn't get a chunk. Then it transitions into a Hail Mary play. And you can see as Gronk goes up, there's about 5 Eagles that are jumping. There's 2 Patriots sitting there in front. All that being said, look at this. Hogan gets hit. This is 12 yards down the field.
That's a penalty.
It's a penalty. He gets crushed 12 yards down the field. That could have been called. And look, this one could go either way, but Tom has clearly released the ball. And what is it? It's Fletcher Cox. Yeah, Fletcher Cox comes in here late and hits him. So there's 2 opportunities where New England's lining up again and taking another shot into the end zone. But this part of it,
illegal
right here,
you know what,
should have been
Eric,
called.
You know what I think? Tell me if I'm crazy. There has been this, New England, Jesse James, Jacksonville, only 1 penalty, and New England only had 1 penalty yesterday. There is this overriding theme in the NFL. New England gets all the breaks. Is it possible? These are human beings. And those are, by the way, the Hogan is a penalty. That's indisputable.
Clearly a penalty.
If New England does that to Philly, people are literally, that's all over the internet. Is it possible the refs didn't call it because of an overwhelming sense New England gets the calls?
Here's what happens a lot of times on these jump ball plays is there's 6 or 7 penalties on a jump ball play, but no official wants to be the one to extend the play.
That's a great point.
And it happens rarely. It may be every 5 to 7 years does a penalty get called on a jump ball. But this is so clear. And it's during the stem of the route. We're not even talking about the scrum where the jump ball takes place. This is the stem of the route where he comes across 12 yards down the field and hits the player.
You know, Eric, it's almost like in the NBA Finals. You get to a Game 7, 3 minutes to go, refs swallow the whistles. You want the players to see. I think as a ref, I've said this before, I would never call pass interference on an alley-oop unless there was a shoulder pad grab. I would just let guys, to me, it's a scrum. It's rugby. Just let them play.
But the problem with that is you are clearly hurting the other team. So you can sit back and say, let them play. But if it's a violation and it affects their opportunity to win the game, and you could argue that Chuck there took him
out of the play,
further away from the play. Yeah, let him play. That's great if you're on the side that's being let play. You're letting them play. Okay. It's not great if you're on the other side.
Every time we bring Eric on, we have a game we call Why It Works, where he has a piece of film and he takes us inside to how coaches see a play. This is the Nick Foles perfect dime down the field for a touchdown. Why did it work?
Well, in this play, it's a little bit of out-patrioting the Patriots. So you've got a running back. You got Corey Clement, a rookie running back. He motions in. You get man's own answers. Then they form a bunch, which is really hard to deal with. And you're going to see Marquise Flowers is clearly going to be on Clement. Now, as Clement builds on his stem, the Patriots are taking away Zach Ertz. So they've got 2 guys on Ertz. Foles knows it's man-to-man. He knows he's got the matchup against the linebacker, and it's isolated. And as much as McCourty tries to come back late and help him, he can't. But the effect that the Eagles had with their running backs, to me, is something I thought we'd be talking about with New England. And the idea of gathering information like they do in this situation to give Foles the man's own answers. And then for him to come back to see the double team between McCourty and I can't tell who the other player is, but on Ertz, and know he's got that isolated coverage, it's very New England-esque. And I thought that was a great design and a great use of the backs that we'd be talking much more about New England doing than Philadelphia doing.
By the way, Tom Brady threw for 500 yards. Tom Brady did not have an interception. Why does it work this way that Nick Foles was the MVP? 500 yards, pressured all day. I mean, is it his fault that Foles dropped 41 on New England's zero pass rush defense? What about Brady MVP?
You have to give it to Foles.
Why?
I was dead wrong on Nick Foles. I thought that this was going to be a lot like what we saw last season when you had a bunch of quarterbacks get hurt late. Their backup came in. Derek Carr is the best example of that. How much the Raiders were rolling last year, and that they were going to get eliminated in the first round or at least the second round. But for Nick Foles to come back and play the way that he has played, Atlanta, there were some rough moments in Atlanta with fumbles, but this was a clean game. Even the interception that he had was batted back into the field. But you talk about a clean game, you talk about poise, you talk about his ability to the example I showed you, decipher what New England was doing and get the ball to the right place. You got to give him a lot of credit. And they're not doing what they did last night without Nick Foles.
Yeah. I watched a ton of him in college, and he was kind of a gunslinger, kind of had that. He was a Texas high school star. He goes to Arizona, recruits Texas, and he was in the Pac-12 when they had Andrew Luck and Matt Barkley. There was a lot of high-profile quarterbacks, and Foles got overlooked. Because the conference had, I think, I could be wrong on this, but Jake Locker was at Washington, and Matt Barkley was at USC, and Pete Carroll. And I remember going to the Coliseum and watching Nick Foles throw for about 300 yards against Pete Carroll's defense. He had a live arm. I'll say this about him. He reminds me a little of Alex Smith with a willingness to throw it downfield a little more.
Well, when you look at his career, though, he had that one outstanding season. Was it 26 touchdowns and two interceptions? Picks. Goes to the Pro Bowl. That's amazing. But then he disappears. And the fact that he goes to Kansas City and then gets cut by Kansas City, you're starting to think, okay, maybe this is a little bit of an RG3 type situation.
Yes.
Where you spike one year, but it's not. It was a little system related.
It was an outlier year.
In the early part of his transition, this didn't look very good.
It didn't look good at all.
It didn't look good at all. And I give the coaches credit for building a system that, or at least incorporating a lot of things that he did well, and I give Nick Foles a ton of credit. And look, I was not on his bandwagon by any stretch, and he performed as well as you could ask him to.
Eric Mangini, Coach, great seeing you. Thank you for coming on the show today. Where Colin was right, where Colin was wrong, right around the corner. Don't forget Valentine's Day is on Wednesday, February 14th. How about this? Replace those Seen Better Days underwear with Tommy John. Ultimate comfort. TommyJohn.com.